Ancient Babylon, there was a businessman who was going on a trip. And this is ancient Babylon, so in order to go on a business trip, you got to get in a caravan and you got to go across the desert. And so he knows he's going to be gone for a very long time. And so he has these 3 servants, these 3 employees that are working for him. And so he calls his servants together and he says, hey, I'm going on this trip. I'm going to be gone for a very long time. I'm going to leave you guys with these talents. A talent is a measure of gold, an amount of gold. And he says, I'm going to leave you guys with these talents. And I want you to do something with these talents. I want you to put them to work. And when I come back from my trip, we'll go through the books and we'll see how each of you did. And so he turns to the first servant and he says, I will give you 5 talents. See what you can do with that. When I come back, we'll go through the books. We'll see how you did. You've worked with me for the longest. You have the most experience. 5 talents for you. Then he turns to the second servant and he says, I'll give you 2 talents. See what you can do with that. When I come back, we'll go through the books. We'll see how you did. And we'll go through the numbers. And then he turns to the third servant. 1 talent for you. See what you can do with that. When I come back, we'll go through the books. You haven't worked for me for as long as these other 2 guys. You're not as experienced, but 1 talent. They say in ancient Babylon, a talent of gold was worth in today's money, close to $1 million. So still a good investment. He says, we'll go through the numbers. We'll see how you did. He goes on his trip and he's gone for a very long time. And eventually he returns from his trip and now it's time to see what these guys were doing with his money. Now it's time to see what they were doing with the time, the opportunity, this gold that he entrusted them with. And so he brings the servants back together again. He pulls them to a room and he says, I gave you 5 talents, right? What'd you do with that? And the servant's like, well, it was tough at first, but eventually we got things going. We took that money, we went to the markets, we bought some stuff, we sold some stuff. The 5 turned to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 talents. I doubled what you gave me. And the businessman's like, wow, great investment, well done. And then he turns to the second servant and he said, I gave you 2 talents, right? And what'd you do with that? And the servant's like, well, it's kind of like that first guy. It was tough at first, but eventually we got things going. We figured it out. We went to the markets. We bought some stuff. We sold some stuff. The 2 turned to 3, 4 talents. I doubled what you gave me. And the businessman's like, well done. And then he turns to the third servant and he said, I gave you 1 talent, right? And what'd you do with that? And the servant's like, well, you only gave me 1 talent. And I've never had that kind of money in my life. I wasn't as experienced as these other 2. And so I took that money and I went out in the middle of the night, I dug a hole in the desert and I buried it. And as soon as I heard that you were coming back, I ran back out there, I dug it out and here it is. Count it, it's all there, every penny, nothing's missing. And the master of the household, the business owner, he says, take his talent away from him. Give it to the one who's got 10. I like what he does with my money. I like what he does with this opportunity that I entrusted him with. This talent, this gold that I gave him. And you see, the lesson for us is that every single person within an organization, every single person in this room has an opportunity. But we look at what we have, and oftentimes because we compare ourselves to the servant with the 1, we identify as the servant with the 1 talent, it's not enough to get us to where we want to go. And so what do? We bury our dreams, we bury our talents, and we kind of just start taking the path of least resistance in life. Do you have something that you're hoping for? Something that you're fighting for? Something that gets you to jump up out of bed every morning and face the day with energy and enthusiasm and show up and be present to serve the people that you work with, to serve the people that are in your family. See, it's impossible to live and be impactful and be as impactful as you could be to invest into the talents that you have and to continue to grow if you're not fighting for something. What are my gifts? What are my talents? What do I have to offer to the world? So that way, every single day when I wake up, I have something to fight for. Someone very brilliant once said that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Words have power. Words are like seeds, and every single day, the dialogue that we have going on up here, the conversations that we have, it's shaping our life. When you have the urge to criticize, when you have the urge to condemn, when you have the urge to complain, find a way to build them up instead. And you'll see how things start to change. You'll see how your relationships with your teammates, your relationships with people in your family, they start to shift. There's a change that happens. If you have children here, pay attention to the way you talk. Speak into their life. They say you don't get burned out by what you do. You get burned out because you forget why you do it. I have this big whiteboard in my office. Every single morning when I wake up, even before I brush my teeth, I go straight to that whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, I have written out the kind of books I want to write, the kind of impact that I want to have, the kind of things that I want to do. And so I don't start a single day without the end in mind already. I know where I'm headed. That way it does not matter what I'm dealing with right now. It does not matter the obstacles that I face on a daily basis. I'm always able to overcome because I always know what it is that I'm working towards. And oftentimes we miss out on some of the most incredible blessings that we have simply because we lose perspective. It's tough. When you're dealing with something in your life, there's a financial situation, there's a relationship, there's something going on with your health, it's like a black hole, right? It takes all of your energy, it takes all of your focus, it takes everything. But living with this principle right here, it's about stepping back and understanding that, hey, this thing that I'm dealing with right now, this is temporary. This is a season. Life has seasons, right? There's summers and there's winters, and sometimes you're in the winter, but when you're in the winter, you got to know that there's a summer coming. It wasn't always like this, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And the only way to have this perspective is to wake up every single day and start counting the blessings that you have, understanding that you have a lot more going for you than you realize. I ground myself in that. Then it doesn't matter what struggles, what's going on in my life, how much difficulty I'm facing, I'm grounded in who I am first. And it starts with that. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Michael, you want us to give more of ourselves, as if we aren't already busy, as if we don't already have enough on our plate, as if we don't already have enough to do. And I'm saying yes, but I'm saying in order to give more of who you truly are, there's things that we have to cut away, right? We're busy. We're busy with the busy things. We got a lot going on. And between what we watch on social media, between what we watch on the news, between our busy schedule, oftentimes we get to a point where we don't even know who we truly are. We don't spend time thinking about, hey, what are those talents? What are those things that bring me joy? What are those things that I'm working towards? Why did I start in this career in the first place? What was that original vision? What's that end destination? And in order to have that perspective, you've got to start to cut some things away. That's the only way to create time in your life, is to cut other things away that are taking it and taking your energy and taking your focus. Baby sloths are known to, as they're crawling through the branches in the trees, they're oftentimes known to mistake their own hands for branches, and they'll grab onto their own hands and they fall out of trees to their death. And I remember thinking, I'm like, what a cute but stupid animal, right? I mean, and then I thought about it for just a little bit longer. And I'm like, when we make excuses, when we have a blame list, aren't we just like baby sloths? Don't we all have like a little list of reasons for why we're not where we want to be? A little list of reasons for why we're not successful. A little list of reasons for why we treat people a certain way, why we have a certain attitude, why we show up a certain way. It's because of this, it's because this happened to me, this person said this, and we hold on to this list like it's the most precious thing that we got. And the harder you're holding on to your excuse list, the harder you fall, the further you fall. So I'm asking, just take responsibility. There is not a single person in this room who hasn't dealt with problems, right? Some of us deal with more problems than others. Some of us have obstacles things that we've had to overcome in our life that we wouldn't wish on anyone else. We all deal with them though. But the perspective with this about taking responsibility, it's like, hey, here's what happened to me in the past. But I'm not gonna let what happened to me, I'm not gonna let the obstacles, I'm not gonna let the way I was treated in a relationship, I'm not gonna let these things that affected me years ago, I'm not gonna let them rob me of my future. I'm gonna take control of my mindset, I'm gonna take control of my time, I'm gonna take control of what I fill my heart and my mind with. And that starts with taking responsibility for right where you're at right now. I truly believe that there's not a single person that walks this earth that doesn't have something unique about them. Maybe it's a unique perspective, a unique story, some sort of a unique gift, some sort of a unique talent. But there are a lot of people who walk this earth that aren't fighting for what they want. And they have those talents, they have those gifts, they have those ideas, they continue to keep them buried inside of them, and they never bring them out to the world. And this is about waking up every single morning and having something to fight for. Being obsessed has a negative connotation in our society, right? But in my opinion, if we had a little bit more people obsessed over who they wanted to become, we'd have a lot less people standing back on the sidelines watching everyone else go by doing incredible things with their life. We might be living in a better world if we had a little bit more people obsessed over what they wanted to do, what they wanted to accomplish. But when I picked up Ogmandino's book and I found that destination and I knew what it was that I was put on here on earth to do, all of a sudden the little dragons that stand in between us and where we want to go, those little obstacles, those little fears that keep us playing small, those little ideas that we keep inside of us because we're afraid of how it's going to get put down or what someone's going to say about it. I was able to start fighting those one by one and slaying them one at a time because all of a sudden I had that destination. I had that desire to do something different. It does not matter what you've picked up, what you've learned, what insights you've gained. If you go home and there's no implementation process, nothing changes. The goal is to walk out those doors a different person. The goal is to go back to your offices, go back to your families, a different person. And the only way you can do that is by implementing what you learn. Step by step, one step at a time, even one thing. If you can get your life in order, one little thing at a time, you're going to be a different person. And it starts with taking action. Jim Rohn used to say, if a guy's an idiot and you motivate him, nothing changes. He says, now you should have yourself a motivated idiot running around. I'm asking you today, don't be like I was for a very long time. Don't be a motivated idiot. Don't jump from book to book to seminar to conference to event, absorbing information, absorbing inspiration, and then not applying it. Motivation is a good thing. Motivation is like that spark, that jolt. It's supposed to get you to wake up. It's supposed to give you that perspective on life. But a lot of times we rely on a feeling, right? And when we don't feel motivated all of a sudden, then it's like, well, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Maybe that wasn't, the insight that I really needed. Action has nothing to do with motivation or a feeling. It has everything to do with a commitment to the process. And that's it, one step at a time. Even if you don't know what you need to do, even if you don't know how, just commit to one step and another step and another step, doors will start opening. It truly comes down to that, because when I was starting out on my dream, writing, speaking, starting a business, I had no idea how I was gonna get to it. But the one thing I always tell people, you know what my talent is? I didn't have writing talent, I didn't have speaking talent. I ran out of my speech class. But the one talent that I feel like I did have was that I just refused to go away. And that was about it. You can tell me to go away 20 times, I'll come back the 21st. And I just refused to go away. And when you develop that mindset that you're gonna refuse to go away, no matter how many times people tell you to go away, no matter how many times people tell you you're not qualified, you don't belong, you don't have what it takes, somebody else has got it better, somebody else is more qualified for this, you go back, you get better, and you keep coming back, and that's what persistence is about. And oftentimes rejection, it's not because someone's just trying to offend you. It's not because they're just trying to stick it to you. Sometimes they're telling you the truth. Sometimes you are not qualified. So you ask yourself, then what do I do? How do I get better? How do I go and become qualified and come back stronger and come back better? You are a creature of habit. How you do one thing is how you do everything. You take little shortcuts. Somebody might not notice today. You don't pick up a piece of trash and you're walking through the property. Little by little, those little shortcuts that you take, those things that you do that you think no one sees, that no one's watching, maybe no one is watching, maybe no one sees, but they start to affect your own mindset. Those seemingly insignificant things, they are shaping your life. How you do one thing is how you're gonna do everything, and the way you carry yourself today is gonna affect the opportunities that you have tomorrow. It has shaped the way I approach my business, it has shaped the way I approach my speaking, it shapes the way I approach my writing. Every aspect of your life, it shapes the way I approach my marriage. To this day, a simple principle. Life starts falling apart, you feel like you've lost control. What do? You pick up a broom and you sweep. You start with the one thing. You start by fixing that one thing, and you instill habits that set you on the right path. Taking a step of faith, that's what this principle is about, because you're not gonna know, you're not gonna have it all figured out. Sometimes you need to just take a step of faith, and you need to just trust that, hey, if I just keep moving, if I just keep taking a step, if I just keep moving in the right direction, something will open up. There will be an opportunity, a door will open, something will happen. So you have to leave this up to a power greater than you. Sometimes you don't know. If you're like the servant with the one talent, you feel like somehow you got less than life, you got a worse education, you didn't go to the kind of school that you wanted to go to, you had more obstacles than everyone else, and you feel like the servant with the one talent. But you don't have to have it all figured out, and you don't need everything to be all put together in place. Sometimes you need to just start to invest into the one that you have. See that story, I love that story about the parable of talents, because it could have been the greatest redemption story. It could have been a story where, hey, this guy who got the least out of everyone, who had the most stacked up against him, this guy put himself to work, and this guy outworked the other ones. And maybe on the next trip, his boss would have entrusted him with the 5. But he did what so many times we do in our life when the odds are stacked against us. We dig a hole and we bury it. We say, you know what? That was a little spark, but it's not for me. That was a great thought, that was a good idea, but it's not for me. I better just stick to something safe. I better just do as I'm told. I better just, take this other path, this path of least resistance. And we bury it. And they say the best books that have never been written, the best songs that have never been sang, the best ideas that have never been put into the world are buried with the people that took them down with them to the cemetery, because they were too afraid, and they weren't investing into it, and they weren't working on it, and they were too afraid to put it out into the world. Choose to believe. You don't have to have it figured out. All the pieces don't have to come into place. Take the step of faith and believe that something will happen, a door will open. Believe in miracles along the way.